to Recovery Month. It's 1993, and 1993 was, believe it or not, the year that the World Wide Web first rolled out, and what a wonderful thing that's been, separating people, propagating pornography, terrorism, and making people feel generally depressed. So good news in 1993. Keep that up. The last thing we want to do is talk to people or walk out in fields. Awful thing to do. And I was looking at where is it? I made a note of these. I was looking at various things from 1993. When you start getting into this thing, you realise that you actually have to look back at a particular year and wonder what the bloody hell went on. Not least because I probably wasn't too aware of it at the time anyway. But I was looking at various. I've always been a bit of a sweet buff, you know, candy, and that has grown more prevalent since not drinking a phenomenal amount all the time because of the amount of sugar in it. So I was having a look at the sort of sweets we used to eat back in the 90s, and these are some of the names of them. And I'll see what you think. Bubble Tape, Crystal Pepsi, Jawbreakers, Laffy Taffy, Pop Rocks, and Dippin' Dots. Now I personally think they all sound a little bit like drugs. We were doomed from the start. It was also in 1993, the year that Nirvana did Unplugged on MTV. I was actually watching a little bit of an award ceremony that may or may not be linked to that particular channel recently, and it's bloody horrendous. It was basically lots of very rich people in this magnificent temple of gold, sycophantically talking about how how they're helping poor people and disenfranchised people and God knows what else. And if you can't see how that might be a little bit ironic, then we might be on a different page. It's almost like this system doesn't work. Maybe we need to have a look at a different one. No, that's enough for me ranting. It is 1993, but it's also Sunday. So what have I done today? So got up this morning. One thing I have noticed, I was making a cup of coffee. Was feeling very anxious this morning for no reason, which is often the way. And there's always that tendency that acts as a little bit of a trigger to me, to say the least, because my instant reaction when I have a feeling that I don't like is to get rid of it. I just want to get rid of it or change it. I've always been like that. And that's, I don't like that one. I want to feel like this all the time, and I'm getting to terms with the fact that is not the case. I'm feeling like this a lot in a very compressed amount of time because all my feelings are coming back, which is a good and a bad thing. I can have like 20 emotions on the way to the door. I think I'm averaging about 6 emotions a minute, which is tiring sometimes. But this is all part of, it's part of actually being a human, rather than avoiding that whole awful scenario of humanness. I was listening to something recently. It was a lecture about the subject of feelings, and he said obviously there's no such thing as a wrong feeling. There's only wrong actions, but there's no such thing as a wrong feeling. It's that we forget that we are part of nature, and thus the rise and fall of our emotions is as natural as anything. You wouldn't say, for example, oh look, there's an imperfect cloud. It is what it is. And that's as part of much as nature as we are. So it made sense to me. That made sense to me. So I'm coming to terms with sitting with feelings rather than just changing them there and then, like I've been doing with everything since I can remember, really. Reality in general. oh, reality is a bit boring, this would be a bit better, that building should be purple and I want to feel happy, I can make that happen. But you know, it's life's extraordinary enough without having to do that, I'm coming to realise. So once I got past the emotional maelstrom of making a cup of coffee, as I said, was going out to meet Captain Oats, who was with Spider Monkey. They've kind of become inseparable. Seeth the spider, seeth the oats. So me and t'other half went into town predominantly to meet Spider and Oats and have a chat with them. And it's always lovely to meet the guys. Having a chat. Many subjects come out of that chat. We're all in the early stages of recovery. I was looking at Oats and thinking, I mean, if you could have seen me really when I first went into Sharps, I think they found me in the skip outside. You're right, love. Come out of there, you'll catch a terrible cold. So I look like crap, and I don't think Oats will mind me telling you that he did as well. But now you can see the transformation is absolutely phenomenal. The guy looks like some pristine Spanish matador. He was going to get his hair cut today. I don't know if he's done that. I hope not, because he does have a habit of, if he has his hair cut, he can end up looking like a Cypriot car dealer, which, you know, is not a look good. Please, when you do speak to me next, Oats, tell me you haven't done that. So there's various conversation topics come up. One was quite interesting. That come to mind was this condition, this illness, whatever you want to call it, and the effect it has on other people. And it undoubtedly does have an effect on other people. Particularly my partner was talking about how she copes and how how difficult it was for her, because of course I was just lying all the time. And how can you judge someone who's lying? How can you deal with something when you don't know the truth? I mean, she was seeing this bit of drinking going up there. She didn't know about this huge bit of drinking going on down here, and she was trapped. Every time she would front me up, I'd tell her a whole bunch of lies, and it's very difficult to deal with. And you have a ripple effect, don't you? You're a stone in the water, and you have this, at the time I was having this massive negative ripple effect. It appears now I'm having on occasion a different effect, maybe a positive ripple effect. Now I'm going through the process of recovery. Positive energy seems to be coming out of me rather than negative energy. And I'm getting that from other people. I'm getting positive energy I've been in the recovery experience with, and their positivity is hitting me as well. We touched on the subject of relationships in early recovery. When is it right to get into a relationship? And I don't know the answer to that. If I did, I'd be a very rich man, which I'm not. And it's hard to point, isn't it, with a stick and say that's the right thing to do. I'm always very, very aware that I don't want to do that or give any advice. I'm the last person you take advice from. And advice is dangerous when given by the wrong person. A raging alcoholic. But I think the one thing that came out of it was make sure that at the top of your list is your recovery. That comes above everything, because without that you've got nothing else. You can't be any good to anyone, you can't be any good to yourself, you're not going to live a productive life, everything's going to fall apart. You're not going to, if you relapse, it's not going to go well. No one comes back from relapse saying it went brilliant. I ended up, narrowboating on the Norfolk Broads. Doesn't happen. As far as I can see or have been aware of whenever I've noticed or had the experience of someone relapsing in early recovery. So it was just that looking after number one, and then everything else will fall in place. Not looking after number one in a selfish way, quite the opposite. We are like glass at the moment. I was saying to my fiance, we're so fragile and so hypersensitive. The idea of someone criticising me, I think I've mentioned this before, the idea of someone criticising me or saying something to hurt me is, I don't cope with it well at the moment. I wish I did, but I don't, and I'm aware of that, so I need to make sure I'm with the right people. I need to make sure I'm having the right conversations, being positive, making sure that my tree is planted in good soil with good stuff happening, and that I can flourish, not in rubbish soil. almost soil, they're rubbish soil, which is going to make that tree wither and die, and that is the soil of negative conversations, scoring, drinking, you know, all those, you know, all that negative association around that, and that tree will wither. So I'm just trying to keep my tree in prosperous soil, and make sure who I have as friends, and people I associate with. I choose very, very carefully, and if anything I think is going to threaten that recovery, I will drop it like a warm sack of the proverbial, because, you know, a lot's at stake. My life, for example, I was this year given 2 months to live, so yeah, important as far as I'm concerned, at least. So you know, and that's the way this thing, again, is that importance of peers, the importance of talking to people, of being honest, and having those conversations, and somehow at the end of it coming out with an answer, but an answer that ultimately is gonna protect the individual. So you know, that is what it is. God, be very, very very protective of yourself. Treat yourself like your best friend. As someone much wiser than me said, treat yourself like your best friend. You wouldn't say to your best friend, you know, tell them to do something that puts them in danger. Yet with ourselves, we can be quite flippant. Oh, I'll do this. What's the worst that can happen? You know, I'll neglect to look after my physical health, my mental health. You know, by looking at and think you're looking after other people and neglecting yourself. All this is gonna, you know, unless that number one thing is at the top, everything else will just fall over. So brilliant conversation. Went to the library after that and got some books. Actually reading again. You just don't do things like read, or go to libraries, or just go into town to meet someone just for the sake of meeting them, because of always having to be around or near your drug or drink of no choice. So there you had it. Another good day in recovery, full of the ups and downs, but always coming to realise that the human experience is intriguing and bizarre and surreal, and the building doesn't need to be changed to blue, and I don't need to feel a different way. Right now, right here, is as good as it gets this very moment, and that's good enough for me. If it isn't, you're missing how complicated and beautiful the human experience is. And if that sounds a little bit like I should be in the award ceremony that I was complaining about earlier, then who cares? So I will wrap up by saying, by the way, the pizza yesterday was absolutely delicious. I went for 3 balls of mozzarella sliced. I've cut down on the bananas. The potassium levels are starting to reduce to normal, which is good news. So I shall leave you be. May your heart sing like Krishna's flute, and I look forward to catching up with you tomorrow. Word out, peace and love. What do I say?